come together, working hand in hand. It's easy if we all carry the load. Look at all we can do to build a better world. When you can trust in me and I can trust in you. So put your hands together. Together we can do anything, anything. We are one. One voice, one heart, one love. Whoa. We're gonna help this city all together now. We make a better story when we help each other out. With peace and understanding, you'll never walk alone. When you can trust in me and I can trust in you. The time is here, the time is now to take a stand and make it count. So put your hands together. Together we can do anything, anything. We are one. One voice, one heart, one love. Whoa, put your hands together. Together we can do anything, anything. We are one. One voice, one heart, one love. Whoa. One life, one voice. Come on now, shout it out. One life, one voice, come on now and shout it out. One life, one voice, come on now and shout it out. One life, one voice, come on now and shout it out. So put your hands together. Together we can do anything, anything. We are one. One voice, one heart, one love. Whoa, put your hands together. Together we can do anything, anything. We are one. One voice, one heart, one love. Come on, yeah.
Hey friends, it's me, Haley. Have you ever wanted to be famous? Like maybe the lead singer of a rock band? Hello, Cleveland! Woo! Or maybe you fancy yourself the lead guitarist. Can you picture it? A huge crowd of people watching you, cheering for you, chanting, Haley, Haley, Haley! Or, whatever your name is. That would be amazing. But you know what? Most bands don't start off on top like that. Most bands start off in some where they practice playing music and they show lots of cooperation. Cooperation is working together to do more than you can do alone. Every member of a band plays an important part. Take one instrument away, and it just won't sound the same. But you wanna know who I think deserves a little more credit in a rock band? The drummer! Think about it. Hey, Warren. The drummer supports the whole band. Without a drummer, who would keep the beat? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Warren. But with a good drummer, the band stays in rhythm. Drummers may not be the most famous, but they get to decide how fast or how slow the songs are. Plus, a drummer can make every joke just a little bit funnier. The drummer works together with the band to help support the singer. This gives a new meaning to the word Band-Aid. Do you get it? In today's story, we'll learn about a great battle fought by the Israelites. A battle that took all kinds of cooperation. They really had to band together. Get it? I'll see you in a few. Thank you, Oklahoma City! Yeah! Woo!
The Bible. It's 66 books of history, Stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. Now, for an amazing story, inspired by the book of Exodus, chapter 17, verses 8 through 13.
God had freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt and led them into the desert. But with no home of their own, the Israelites were still wide open to enemy attack as they traveled. One evening, as Moses walked through the camp, his assistant Joshua raced up.
Amalekites!
Where? How many?
Just a few men right now. They attacked at the rear, where many of the women and children are. But we beat them back.
They'll come in full force tomorrow.
Moses turned to survey the land around them in the last rays of the setting sun. The whole valley of Rephidim spread out before them. Nearby, a high hill provided a lookout for the whole countryside.
We have no army.
We'll have to fight. You choose our best men and get ready for battle in the morning.
Will you come with us?
No,
Moses pointed at the hilltop.
I'll climb up there and hold up the walking stick that God gave me.
Both men looked at the sturdy staff in Moses' hand. It was no ordinary stick. Moses had lifted the staff when God had parted the water of the Red Sea so the Israelites could escape.
Yes, sir. I'll call the men.
In the great chill before dawn, Joshua and his group of inexperienced fighters prepared for battle against the Amalekites.
I've never held a sword.
God has saved us many times. He can do it again.
As the ragtag army gathered at one end of the valley, Moses climbed the hill with his brother Aaron and his friend Hur.
So, Moses, what's the plan?
Yeah, those Amalekites got some mean fighters.
We'll call on God.
As the three men crested the hill, they turned to look back. The rising sun flooded the valley. They could see Joshua and the Israelites just below. At the far end of the valley, a vast swarm of Amalekites rushed forward.
Oh, more Amalekites than bees in a hive.
Within minutes, the two groups clashed. It was clear from the very beginning that the Amalekites had the upper hand.
They'll wipe us out in no time.
Wait.
At the very crest of the hill, Moses grabbed his staff and raised both hands high in the air.
Our God is stronger than any enemy.
In a short time, the tide seemed to turn.
Well, what do you know? Joshua's pushing them back.
The Israelites steadily beat back the Amalekite army. But as the sun rose and the heat increased, Moses' arms grew tired. Little by little, his arms sank down.
Uh-oh. The Amalekites have busted through our line right there.
We were doing so well.
God, help us.
With an effort, Moses lifted his hands high again. Joshua had formed a strong band of fighters, and once again, the Israelites surged forward. Moses lowered his arms to stretch.
Ah, my back! What just happened? Joshua had them.
Moses stepped forward to see, raising his hands high again. Aaron turned to stare at his brother.
It's your hands. When your hands are raised up toward God, we're winning.
Yeah, and when you drop them, those fool Amalekites start to win.
Yes, but I can't do this all day.
Moses' arms began to shake.
Hold it one more minute. I got a rock-solid plan. Aaron?
Together, Aaron and Hur rolled a huge stone to the place where Moses stood.
Now, you set yourself right down, Mo.
Carefully, Moses lowered himself onto the rock, fighting to keep his hands high in the air.
My arms!
We got it, brother.
Aaron and Hur each stood on one side of Moses and held up a hand.
Whew!
For the rest of the day, Aaron and Hur stood right beside Moses, keeping his hands steady. By sunset, Joshua and the Israelites completely defeated the Amalekites.
Look at him run!
The Amalekites had been defeated by God's power, but it was only by working together with his friends that Moses had been able to keep his hands lifted high all day.
The battle against the Amalekites took loads of cooperation. Aaron and Hur worked together to help Moses. The three of them worked together to help Joshua and the Israelites. And God worked with all of them to do something miraculous. What's cool is that None of those people did what they did to make themselves famous. They were each trying to help someone else succeed. That's something you can do too. You can work together not because it makes you look good, but because it helps someone else. After all, life isn't always all about you. You could work with a friend on their homework, even when it's not your grade. You could help your brother or sister clean up their room, even though you didn't make the mess. If a friend is involved in a sport that you don't play, you can help make signs or posters to cheer them on. Jesus once said, "In everything, do to others what you would want them to do to you." In other words, you should treat others the way you want to be treated. Here's one way you can do that today. Work together to help someone succeed. Working together for unselfish reasons is a great way to show someone you love them. What are you waiting for? Go get the band together and hop on the cooperation bandwagon. And I don't miss a beat. It's time to face the music. Wait. See if you can drum up some support. No, drum up some support. No, okay, no support for that one. Thanks, Warren. I'll see you next time.
I want to be rich. I want to be cool.
I want to be pretty.
I want to be successful.
I want to be cool. I want to be powerful.
I want to be rich.
I want to be popular.
I want to be clever.
I want to be successful. I want to be pure.
I want to be heartbroken.
I want to be merciful.
I want to be humble.
I want to be hungry.
I want to be gentle.
I want to be a peacemaker.
I want to be persecuted.
Just be.
Stories are powerful. Just think about a movie you loved or series you binged that you felt connected to or drawn in by. Think about a time someone was telling a story about something that happened to them and you hung on to every word and detail. The thing about stories is they don't just entertain you or help you fall asleep. They pull you in and can help you get to know others better simply by hearing their experience. Stories make challenging topics clearer, big ideas easier to understand, and can even turn painful experiences into hopeful ones. No matter what the topic is, stories can help you see things in a new way and give you a fresh perspective. So today, we're going to do things a little differently and hear some stories from a few different people. Every person you're about to hear from is going to share about an experience they've had regarding race. Here's the thing about race. Race is one of the things we don't get to choose about our lives. It's something we're all born with, and it doesn't change. We also know that throughout history, and still today, there have been people who don't understand, accept, or even like people whose race is different than their own. This causes racial tension, which we're defining as the struggle or anger that exists between people or groups of different races. If you have social media or have ever watched the news, you've seen painful and devastating stories of people being treated unfairly. You've seen the anger, heard the conversations, or maybe have just felt confused by what the big deal is altogether. Today, hopefully after hearing these stories, you'll have a bigger picture and better idea of the things some people experience when it comes to race.
Hey, I'm Bobby, and when I was in the 8th grade, we had a school dance where the girls were supposed to ask the guys to go with them. Now, I hope that a particular girl would ask me to take her to the dance because I really liked her. And guess what? She asked me, and I said yes. And y'all, I was so excited that I got my outfit ready weeks in advance, like weeks. A few days after she asked me to the dance, my school had a skate party, and I met her dad for the first time. He introduced himself to me, and we talked for a few minutes. After the skate party, the girl came up to me and told me that she couldn't go with me to the dance anymore. Y'all, I was so devastated that I didn't even go to the dance. I just stayed home and watched TV. And you know, I spent years wondering why things changed all of a sudden. So when I saw her a few years later, I asked her why she didn't go to the dance with me. And she told me her dad wouldn't let me take her to the dance because I'm Black. There was literally no other reason except the color of my skin. And at the time, I couldn't understand why. It was at that moment I started questioning so many things about myself. See, sometimes we don't always understand why people are unfair because of race. I couldn't understand why someone would do that to me. Like, will this be an issue I'll always deal with for the rest of my life?
Hey guys, I'm Jean, and I'm Korean American, which means both of my parents are Korean, and I was born here in the United States. When I was growing up, the school that I went to had people from all different cultures and countries and backgrounds, and a lot of my friends ended up being actually from the Middle East, and we always had the best time. When I was in high school, there was an awful attack on the United States. Some of you might already know what happened on September 11th in 2001, but if you haven't heard, it was the day a group of people from the Middle East crashed airplanes into really important buildings in the United States. Thousands of people suffered and even lost their lives from this attack. It was a really awful time. What made me really sad was how my friends were treated after the attack. People in my school were so mean to my friends who were from the Middle East just because they were of the same race as the people who attacked the country. My friends didn't even know the people who did it. No one realized that my friends were just as scared as anyone else who lived in the United States. But somehow, it seemed like people blamed my friends for something they weren't even a part of. I knew that my friends were really hurt by the things people said to them, and I knew it was wrong for them to be treated unfairly. But I honestly didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stand up for my friends. And the truth is, sometimes people don't know how to stand up for others who were treated unfairly because of their race. Even though I did my best to comfort my friends in private, why didn't I just stand up for them in public? I've always wondered, what could I have done to help more?
Stories are powerful because they allow us to see ourselves in them. We relate to them. In fact, maybe one of the stories you just heard sounded similar to something you've experienced. You might know what it's like to be treated in a way you shouldn't because of your race. Maybe you never thought about any of this and didn't think it was a big deal. Maybe you've seen someone being mistreated because of their race and even participated, but never thought about what it's like to be the other person. No matter where you fit into all of this, I wanted you to hear these stories so that you can know you are not alone in your experience. Everyone who shared their story today was uniquely different than anyone else who shared their story. And yet, we all have something in common. We all have a story. When it comes to race, sometimes our differences cause people to think of others as less than, or themselves as better than, which is known as bias. If we aren't careful, bias leads to treating others differently or poorly, and that's discrimination. So why is there racial tension? There's racial tension because bias, discrimination, and prejudice are real. Prejudice is an assumption or opinion that is not based on reason or actual experience. When we think of others as less than because of their race, or if we treat others worse because of their race, it can cause incredible pain. It's not okay. It's not something God is okay with. It angers God and disappoints God. And yet, racial biases still exist in our world. We hear about it all the time. The truth is, together, we reflect the image of God. Our differences are evidence of a God who created every detail of each person with intentionality. Out of all the things God created, people, meaning you and me and every person you see, we're the ones chosen to reflect God's image, to represent God. That means every person is unique and every person is valued. In case we ever forget that message, Jesus' life, death, and resurrection reminds us. Jesus came to make wrong things right and show us the best way to live. He reminded us over and over in the way he treated people like him and people different from him that every person has incredible value. In a time when people accepted bias and racism or the unfair and unjust treatment of someone because of their race, Jesus literally changed everything. No matter who he was interacting with, he treated them with love and respect. Why? Because their differences weren't something to fear. They were a reminder of God's unique mark on every person. One of Jesus' followers, who also happened to be his brother, wrote about this very idea. Like Jesus, James grew up in a culture where some people were treated better than others. It was normal. Some people would even say it was right. It was so common, they may not have even noticed they were doing it. But after Jesus' death and resurrection, when James became a believer in Jesus, he wrote a letter to other Christians saying, "My dear brothers and sisters, how can you claim to have faith in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ if you favor some people over others? Showing favor is treating people in an unequal way. In other words, James is saying, how can you say you follow Jesus and treat some people like they're better than others? Jesus didn't do that. Being a Jesus follower means acting like Jesus and treating everyone the way Jesus did, like every person was valuable and had a God-given purpose to live out. When you live as if that's not true, your faith seems like it's not real." Then James says this, "Yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You are guilty of breaking the law." That royal law James wrote about is part of what Jesus himself called the greatest or most important commandment. Jesus said a lot of important things and did a lot of important things, but the one thing he said mattered most was loving God, and equal to that, loving our neighbors as ourselves. Here, James points out that if we don't do that, if we favor some people over others, if we treat others like they matter less or more, it's a sin. It's not the way Jesus intended us to live. So, when it comes to living in a way that fights racial injustice, when it comes to living in a way that works toward a better world where everyone is seen and treated equally, we go back to the greatest commandment, to love others as we love ourselves, to love others as Jesus loves them. That is the part we play in fighting racial tension and racial injustice. As followers of Jesus, we believe that when you know who Jesus is, it changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, and it changes how you see everyone else. That means even if racial bias is everywhere in our world, even if it seems common, it can't be common with us. Our lives need to reflect Jesus' committed love for all people, no exceptions and no exclusions. That is what loving our neighbor and living like Jesus looks like. Remember, together we reflect the image of God. When God made mankind, he said this, "So God created mankind in his own image." That means every person, no matter their age, gender, or race, is valued, shows us something about God we wouldn't otherwise know, and should be treated with respect. Reflecting God's image means when people see you, they see more of who God is. But unfortunately, you and I both know that sometimes the world doesn't see it this way. Even though God made each of us to uniquely reflect that image, not all people act as if that's true. Some people treat people of other races like they don't belong. Some people use hurtful words or language towards people who don't look like them. Some people even act out in anger or even hate toward other races. And not only do those things cause more racial tension in our world, they're also not reflecting or respecting the image of God in each other. For those of you in the room who have been hurt or mistreated because of your race, you need to know that that treatment is not okay. The pain you feel is real, and it's awful. I'm so sorry that's how you and your community have been treated. We are committed to this being a safe space for you to talk about your experiences and to find people right here who are willing to walk with you and beside you. Maybe others of you haven't experienced any bias or poor treatment because of your race. Maybe, like the people James wrote to, you were unaware and never really noticed that having a bias was wrong. That's why it's so important to listen to people who are willing to share their stories like the ones we heard today, and to learn from them. Let's be clear, racism, discrimination, and biases that devalue others are sins and shouldn't exist. Yet, when we choose to intentionally listen to each other, we have the power to turn negative experiences with race into opportunities for learning, healing, and connection. Speaking of, let's go back to the stories.
If you ever felt like your opinions aren't really heard when it comes to racial tension, know that you're important because together we reflect the image of God. You're not too young to have feelings around this issue, and your voice should still be heard by those who care about you. Your experiences are not too small, and even if no one asks, you're still invited to say how you feel with love and respect.
For anyone who may have felt a little confused like I did in being biracial, I want to encourage you to embrace everything about the way God made you and others. You don't have to pick a side if you're biracial. All parts of you are unique, and that makes you complete. You can just be you. Accept and appreciate that you are unique. And if you run into people who don't fully understand you, that's okay. You can remind them and yourself what makes you, you.
Whether or not you have friendships with people from different races, remember that the goal is always to love everyone well, no matter what, and understand that our differences are what make us all unique. Actually, our differences are what make it possible to reflect the image of God. There's so much to know and learn about God, and getting to know other people help us to do that. Loving and listening to others can create amazing bonds that you never knew were possible. Getting to know people from races different than your own is such a beautiful experience because it helps us to see God by opening our eyes to the world around us. So open your eyes. And then do your best to connect with others and support your friends any way that you can. It's so worth it when the end result is loving everyone well.
We know you have your own story, and so do all of your friends. That's why small groups are so important. We want you to connect with the people in your group to talk about your experiences, ask questions, and most importantly, to have a leader who is for you and loves you deeply. Remember, as you go to groups today, you have a safe place to process as we all figure out how to be more like Jesus together. Today, hopefully after hearing these stories, you'll have a bigger picture and better idea of the things some people experience when it comes to race.